So President Trump loses at the Supreme Court. We spoke with William Jacobson of legalinsurrection.com. I'm going to bring that to you right now. I just got to put this out into the world. But I'm going to bring that to you. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. And we are about to begin. Hang loose. Let's make this happen. It is a strike down of tariffs, a huge loss for Donald Trump. That's how it's going to get played. And we should be clear, it's a loss. It is a 6-3 decision from the Supreme Court saying that the IEEPA cannot be utilized. It does not authorize the president to impose tariffs of unlimited duration and unlimited amount. Tony Katz today. Good to be here. Good to be with you. William Jacobson joins me right now, Cornell Law Professor, the mind behind legalinsurrection.com. You're already to the writing. I mean, here is the story. Supreme Court strikes down Trump's tariffs. Let's walk through this about what is the IEEPA and what this 6-3 decision actually says.
Well, the Supreme Court decision came down about an hour ago. It's when you add the majority decision and all the dissents, I think it's 122 pages. So I can't say that I have scrutinized every line in it, but I have the gist of it. I think I understand. And essentially what Chief Justice Roberts, joined by the 3 liberals, plus the 2 so-called conservatives, Coney Barrett and Gorsuch, found that imposing tariffs was not one of the remedies allowed under the emergency statute that otherwise allows the president to regulate importation. And that's the key phrase, regulate importation. And the question was, what does that mean? And it's not 100% clear, but they held that whatever it means, it does not mean imposing tariffs. And that's really the gist of it. There's a very persuasive, in my view, dissent by Kavanaugh, joined by Thomas and Alito, which argues otherwise, and I'm happy to talk about that. Yeah. But, one of the startling things during the oral arguments when this took place is everybody agreed that this statute to regulate importation would allow Donald Trump to completely bar imports from a particular country. And the argument was, well, if he can bar all imports from China, can he impose a $1 tariff on imports from China? And the Supreme Court held, apparently, no, he can't. And that's where Kavanaugh picked up how nonsensical this is, how nonsensical the reading of the regulation is.
So we should be clear that this is about a specific piece of legislation, the IEEPA, which is the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. This isn't a conversation of whether or not tariffs can be implemented. It's that the president was saying, this is the law, the rule that I'm going to utilize in this case, not even necessarily in all cases, but in the cases of China, Mexico, and Canada, for example.
That's right. We have to be very clear that this is not a policy argument. I think the policy is hovering over everything, whether you think tariffs are good or bad, but it would be completely consistent to say, I don't like these tariffs. I feel they're an unnecessary cost passed along to the American consumer. That's fine. But that's not the question here. Unfortunately, though, that political question hovers over everything. And the question here is, under this specific law passed by Congress, does the president's power to, quote, regulate importation, close quote, include tariffs? And the Supreme Court held it didn't. And the 3 dissenters says it does. Because historically, Richard Nixon imposed tariffs and those were upheld. Historically, the president's power is very wide-ranging, much in the way it's wide-ranging with regard to things regarding international affairs and foreign affairs. And so Kavanaugh, I think, said, and I don't think he used the word nonsensical, but he used a similar word, that it makes no sense to say the president could completely cut off trade, but not to allow the president a lesser remedy, which is to impose a tariff. And so it's a strange decision. I can't help but recall back to the Obamacare decision back in 2012, where Chief Justice Roberts was the deciding vote to bend over backwards to save Obamacare. And he did it unexpectedly to almost everybody by saying that it was within the Congress's power to tax. Okay, right. So he found that it was unconstitutional under the Commerce Clause, but it was within Congress's power to tax. So he bent over backwards to uphold what the administration did there, what the Congress did. Now, that was legislation. This is a statute, so it is a little bit different. But the gymnastics, the mental gymnastics gone through to uphold Obamacare are completely absent from the majority decision here. In fact, you could say there are mental gymnastics to strike down the tariffs, to find that you can completely cut off trade with China, but you can't impose a tariff. That takes a bit of mental gymnastics.
Talking to William Jacobson, a Cornell law professor, the mind behind legalinsurrection.com. And it is this idea that the president has the ability to regulate, and the IEEPA says that these emergency powers can be utilized to regulate, but regulate does not mean a tariff. And as we've seen, we've got these other avenues that the president can explore. We're going to get more into those, but you bring up Justice Kavanaugh, who was part of the dissent. Before we get there, there's no question of where Ketanji Brown Jackson or where Sonia Sotomayor were going to be on a case like this. Elena Kagan, I always consider to be a little more of a possibility any which way. But when Amy Coney Barrett, Roberts, and Gorsuch go over to this side, is this a man we really misread these people? Certainly we misread John Roberts, and that's been a long time held belief by a lot of people. Was it a misread of Amy Coney Barrett and Gorsuch on conservative bona fides, on their constitutional bona fides in doing so? Or have, in their opinion, did they try to make sense of it all?
Well, I think they're honest people who hold their views and try to do what they believe is correct under the Constitution and the interpretation of statutes. Yes, it's absolutely true. We supposedly have a 6-3 majority, but I'm not sure we really do. And it's always been that way. The three liberals vote in a block. Okay, I can't say there's never been a case where they haven't voted as a block, but it's rare. They vote as a block. And I haven't had time today, and I'm not sure I have the patience even later today to read the concurring opinions by the three liberal justices. It's somewhat irrelevant at this point. And certainly I don't have the patience to read a Ketanji Brown Jackson concurring, although I may read it, for the lols, so to speak. But the point is, look, the Supreme Court is not in lockstep 6-3 in favor of things this administration does. And that's just the reality. And so I can't say it was a misread of them. Certainly Roberts in many cases has been a huge disappointment. His view, his institutionalist view of the court does not seem to be shared by the three open liberals on the court. And so is it a misread? I don't know, but certainly there have been some disappointments. On the other hand, in emergency petitions to the Supreme Court in this current administration, I think 90% plus have gone in favor of the administration. So while this may disappoint people, and I understand that, I don't think you can write off the court at this point. Certainly, the liberals hate this court with a burning passion and can't wait to expand it or destroy it. Right. So you can't win them all,
which is crazy, right? They're gonna love this decision and still hate the court and still say the court's Trump's handpicked court and all the rest. By the way, can we discuss how Trump is the worst dictator and authoritarian in the world? because he's going to go along with what happened. They're going to figure out another way. And I think that's the point to dig in on here. And I want to do that, talking to William Jacobson, Cornell law professor, the mind behind legalinsurrection.com. But let's get into this Kavanaugh dissent as you're talking about it, because you wrote about it and you shared parts of the dissent where Kavanaugh is basically saying about this very concept of regulate via the IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Hey, rest of the Supreme Court, you don't make no sense. If regulate means I don't have to allow the products in, regulate can easily mean I can set a tariff on the product. This is Kavanaugh's argument to the majority in the court, saying you don't quite actually have an argument here.
That's right. And that, again, was discussed at great length during the oral arguments. And it was pretty shocking that even the attorney for the people challenging what Trump was doing admitted, yes, he could completely ban imports from any particular country. It makes no sense. And that's really the problem. I think that what people really have a problem with are the tariffs. Tariffs normally have to be passed by Congress, but there is this carve out. Tariffs are considered by many people, and I think this is right, as a form of tax. Personally, I'm not thrilled with them in my day-to-day life. The cost of the coffee beans I buy has almost doubled, since these tariffs were imposed, because all coffee comes from abroad, except maybe from Hawaii, but that's ridiculously expensive anyway, the Kona coffee. But the point is that you can be opposed to this and say, okay, well, maybe Congress shouldn't have passed this statute, however many decades ago they passed it, but they did. And that's really the question, is what does this mean to regulate importation? And if Congress gave the president the power to do that, doesn't that include all of the lesser remedies short of banning trade? And that's really, I think, the question. And so Kavanaugh, I think, is onto it. Thomas, of course, is always onto it, and Alito. And those are really the core of the conservatives on the court. The other three could go any way on any given case.
And before I let you go, my point is comedic, but it's also factual. They're going to claim that Trump's an authoritarian. They're going to Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, has already said a fantastic win against this wannabe king. They don't stop doing this, even when presented with the reality that, of course, he's not a king. Of course, he's not authoritarian. The Supreme Court has ruled here. If you since there's no other way for the president to go about doing this under the IEEPA, one has to assume he's going to take other measures and other ways to try and keep tariffs somehow alive. I mean, you could argue politically, he says, well, I tried, and now things aren't great. Well, that's because, of the court, because of the leftists and all the rest. He could try and go down that road. But the argument that the left is going to give about authoritarian Trump, would this please put that to rest already?
No, it's not. And in fact, Susan Rice, the despicable Obama administration aide, I forget what her title was. She had a lot of high profile titles, put out a video saying they're coming after the Trump supporters. If Democrats get back in power, they are coming after people. They're not hiding it. The reactions that you're seeing have nothing to do with the merits of the case. It's all Trump derangement syndrome. It's about 2026 midterms. It's about 2028 presidential election. The authoritarian no King's Day is complete nonsense. Who is the president who did actually disregard a Supreme Court ruling? Joe Biden on student loans, and they had to come back multiple times. So it's complete nonsense. Trump will obey this like he has obeyed every Supreme Court order, whether they're for him or against him. And in fact, he doesn't openly defy any court orders, as much as some of his supporters push him to do it, to thumb his nose at the federal judiciary, particularly the district courts, which in many cases have gone off the rails completely, with Trump derangement syndrome. He doesn't do that. It's a complete fabrication. I don't know if they believe it. I think some of them believe it. Judging on the postings of high school friends. A lot of liberals have completely bought into this stuff. It's insane. So Trump will find another way to get done what he wants to get done. But there's no question this is a big blow to him, because he was using the tariffs as a lesser remedy rather than cutting off trade to enforce his foreign policy.
By the way, Susan Rice was the national security advisor under Barack Obama, and she did refer to, if Democrats win, they will enact an accountability agenda. That was the exact wording that she used. William Jacobson, Cornell Law Professor, legalinsurrection.com. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. More is coming up. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. What? There we go. Welcome back. Tony Katz Today. William Jacobson. Good man. Good person. Okay. Don't get things twisted at all with this decision from the Supreme Court, because, and I want to make sure I made it clear when I was talking to William Jacobson, this is about the IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. That is the rule that President Trump was using in order to impose these tariffs, specifically China, Mexico, Canada. The argument was about this idea of regulate. He can regulate trade. He can stop trade from coming in from Canada, from Canada or China or anywhere else, 1,000%. Well, if he can regulate that, then certainly he can regulate as a tariff. That is part of the dissent, or really the crux of the dissent of Justice Kavanaugh, and what makes this frustrating for a lot of people. Nowhere does this say that the president can't engage other tariffs. So as you're putting it here, the Trade Act of 1974, I don't claim an expertise on the Trade Act of 1974, but I'm willing to bet you that if you and I sat down with a little bit of AI and a little bit of bourbon, we would find 9 different ways the president can still go about tariffs. The real question here is, should he? What if, spitballing, what if he was just given an out? Listen, somebody said it earlier. Tariffs are taxes, and they were. Oh, here it is. Here, this is Mike. Tony is wanting to jump up and down with excitement. Get Matt Doom and Gloom Will on next. Dr. Will be with us in the 3rd hour. How dare you call him Doom and Gloom? Stop it. Of course I don't like tariffs. But this decision is really weird. Really, really weird. Let's bring it back to the radio show. We'll get into it. I was commenting that there are people in the chat room who are saying that Tony must be so excited that these tariffs got kicked out, considering how much he hates tariffs. You have me very, very wrong. Tony Katz today. Good to be here. Good to be with you. Tariffs are taxes. There is no question. There is no doubt. The question before us is that when the Supreme Court says tariffs are taxes, how do they then look at the writing of the IEEPA and say that's what the president was involved in? I call them taxes because I don't know how else you could possibly describe them. That is different than whether or not the president is able to implement the tariffs. Did I say hello? I did. I'm Tony Katz. So make sure we understand this decision. And producer Landon is tracking that we're expecting to hear from President Trump, to which I assume he is going to be, wait for it, unkind towards the Supreme Court. This is about the IEEPA. This is, and you can find the story, as I was talking to William Jacobson, of course, you can find the story at legalinsurrection.com. The IEEPA is the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. It is under this rule, this act, that the president implemented tariffs. There are other tools, other laws, other rules, other statutes that the president can use. He has got a plethora of opportunities. This was from AEI. This goes back to December of 2025. Trump has many options if the Supreme Court strikes down tariffs. And they just go through the list. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on of all of the options that the president has at his disposal. So the people who are going to be out there saying, see, Trump can't put on tariffs. Of course he can. Of course he can. This was about a specific rule, a specific act. And what the Supreme Court said is certainly a weird decision. I've seen people say, of course, the court was right about this. I think Ben Shapiro said it should have been a 9-0 decision. I don't think Ben's right about that. Well, Ben's a lawyer, Tony, and you're not. Yeah, and Dr. Fauci was a doctor, and he told me I have to be 6 feet away from my grandmother. I don't listen to people who claim to be experts. Sometimes people are wrong. I don't think that's the right decision. That I oppose tariffs is second to whether or not the president has the authority. Don't ever confuse the issues. Of course I oppose tariffs. Why? They're freaking taxes. I'm right. I know I'm right. I'll tell your mother I'm right. I'm right. But this is about whether or not he can. Now we get into a whole different conversation, which I'd love to get your thoughts about. Let me know on Twitter X at Tony Katz, in the chat room as we live stream on YouTube. You can email me, Tony@TonyKatz.com. If you're Donald Trump, what do you do next? Do you keep tariffing? Do you find another way? Or do you say, hey guys, I tried? Because you know if the tariffs come off and prices come down, that's better for you heading into a midterm to keep Democrats at bay so you don't get impeached. Kids, you know there's a silver lining to everything, right? Oh, you want to play some 4D chess? Let's do that. Grab a bourbon. Let's discuss it. And if the president does start speaking, don't worry. I'm going to bring it to you. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. So 12:45. Now, what's weird is they had to move the schedule because Sean Duffy is scheduled to hold a press conference at 1 o'clock. That's going to get moved. Transportation Secretary. This having to do with what's going on with the TSA and the shutdown. And listen, I like Duffy a lot. I have never met the man. I didn't meet him when he was at Fox. I never, ever worked with him. I like him quite a bit. No, they still have Duffy on the schedule, but they have Trump at 12:45. Guys, I what do I have? Oh, I'll tell you what I have. Hold on a second. Yeah, let's throw that there. We'll check this out right here. Where is it? All right. So we can go in one of two directions today. We can go one of two places. I can go with the Starlight Distillery. This is what we reviewed this week on Eat, Drink, Smoke. This is the Honey Reserve, 106 proof. This is a very interesting bourbon. Very, very interesting. 5 years aged. Starlight is right here in Indiana. I think it's the first Starlight product we've ever done. There's no reason that a 106 proof should have that much heat. It was very, very beguiling. Or we could just do Blanton's Gold. You tell me. And once Trump starts talking, which one are we drinking? Which one are we doing? Because I am here for it. It's going to be so joyous. And I'm serious. Trump can take this a bunch of different ways. So let's say, Titan, let's take your argument here. Forgive me, guys. Still a little bit of a stuffy nose. Prices won't be coming down, since when prices actually come down with any significance, corporations aren't going to change how they operate. Let's say that no new tariffs come. The tariffs are now rescinded, and the prices don't come down. Now President Trump gets to go out every day to the bully pulpit and punch companies directly in the face, and he will be seen as a hero for bringing down prices and taking down the greedy corporations. Let me ask, you want to take those punches to the face? Yes or no? How do you want this to work? So I get your point is, I think, a standardized point, right? Companies don't lower prices. But I think in this case they do. And I think conversations like this are just ridiculous. He doesn't care. That's just a silly thing to say, right? It doesn't actually do anything. Trump said tariffs didn't raise prices. He can say anything he wants. You and I know differently. Average household spent an extra $1,000. His argument is that if the economy has grown and built up since then, it has worked. It has been effective in creating the trade deals. By the way, what happens now with the trade deals? And then there's the whole trade deficit conversation, which we said from the beginning, tariffs don't change trade deficits. No, not an idiot, but clearly his view of tariffs is not mine, flat out mistaken. It was the thing getting in his way. Some will argue that without the tariffs, things will be much better for him. So the president is scheduled to hold a press conference about the tariff decision, and it seems that a lot of people are confused by all the options and opportunities that this brings. One of the beautiful things about being us, guys, is that we never once have to worry about something we said prior, because we're always honest. Tariffs are taxes. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. President Trump believed that tariff was the most beautiful word in the world, and that tariffs were helpful in creating trade deals. That's his belief. That's his take. I couldn't convince him otherwise. That's what he believed. When I say we, I mean me. Maybe you were with me. I believe that when you create better financial opportunities, when you have lower cost structures, you create lower tax structures, you create opportunities to build more business. And certainly one could not look at trade deficits and say the answer is tariffs. It was a mistake. Said so from the beginning. I'm on the record. You don't change trade deficits with tariffs. It was a mistake from the beginning. It was a complete misread. Now, the tariffs did show some things that were kind of incredible. Like, for example, that inflation did not explode. Inflation is not gone, and the Fed has been talking about this. The Fed is very clearly saying that they have a concern about interest rates, and President Trump is still infuriated with Jerome Powell about this. But inflation didn't jump up 4, 5, 6, 7%. It didn't get into the Biden years. Nowhere near. And so this talk that the tariffs are going to explode, that it didn't, and that's still worthy of study. But the idea that the tariff didn't raise costs, well, of course tariffs raise costs. We said so. We didn't say so because, oh man, it's really good to be against Trump or for Trump. Stop it. It's because it was what it was. When you honestly address subjects, you don't have to find yourself on the back foot of anything. The tariffs increased costs. Trump's philosophy was the tariffs create deals that make things better for America. Do we see the investment still come? What of all these trade deals now? Do they now go defunct? If the trade deal was created under the guise of the tariff, right? And now you don't have the tariff. Does the trade deal still exist? Does the trade deal now something that gets Senate approval by any stretch? Remember, if the deal brought us billions of dollars, Senate Democrats would say no. We understand that. So as we're watching this play out, people are going to spin things for their political purpose all day, all night, and all the time. That's not our job. That's madness. Our job is to certainly confront anybody who's lying, anybody who wants to spin narrative. We don't have to concern ourselves with the people who are fraudsters. What we have to do is ask ourselves, what is it that we want next? What's really going to help this economy next? And so this is why I bring up that one of the ideas is don't do anything, President Trump. Tariffs were the thing that were hurting you. Tariffs were the thing that were limiting manufacturing. Tariffs were the thing that were keeping us from the explosion of economic opportunity that can come now. Why not let it come? Don't do anything about the tariffs. Leave them be. Instead, let this economy cook. Let yourself have a couple of good GDP quarters. Let's see what we build over the next 6 months, and then start talking about for the midterms. Well, I guess I juiced the engine right with the tariffs. I was right. If the Supreme Court had let me, I would have. It would have been even better. But look how good things are. That's a way to go about this. Let me, by the way, bring a second point up, and a great way for you to confront all of these nonsense, silly progressives. The Supreme Court ruled that the president, through the IEEPA, cannot apply tariffs. That would make Donald Trump the worst authoritarian in the world. I'm told he's a wannabe king. I'm told he's an authoritarian. I'm told he's a dictator. But 6 people in robes just told the president, who was elected by nearly 80 million people, he can't do something. You know what's going to happen? He ain't going to do it. Worst authoritarian in the world. Now, somebody is asking a good question, even though they asked it in a rude way. Because I assume if you're like, hey, buddy, answer this, that you're being rude. How do you pay him back? Pay what back? The tariffs. I believe the number is $170 billion, but that number can change, of tariffs that were collected. They now have to get paid back. And I believe that Justice Kavanaugh even discussed the fact that this idea is insane. Do you know how messy this is going to be? Oh, you better believe it. It's going to be very messy. One would assume it's going to be outrageously difficult to figure out, okay, this dollar goes here and this dollar goes there. But yes, as I understand it, that yes, indeed, this has to get paid back. Now, is the president going to say, well, no, well, now we'll just apply this rule for the tariffs and all that money just stays? Is the president going to turn to these countries and say, hey, you paid these tariffs, now let's turn it into investment? But wait, the country didn't pay the tariff. We paid the tariff. I swear to you, I wish I had an answer for that one. And I don't. I don't have an answer for that one at all. As a matter of just this decision, even though I don't like tariffs, even though I've been opposed to tariffs, I still think this decision is odd. And the parsing of the idea of this authority, the parsing of the state, the concept of regulating importation, and that it doesn't include tariffs. Take your love or hate for Trump out of it, right? That doesn't matter. The rule says, the IEEPA states that the president has the authority to regulate importation. If regulate doesn't include tariffs, but it does include wholesale bans, I don't know. I don't quite know how you square that circle. I don't know how the justices came to that, the 6 justices came to that conclusion. I do know that it proves that Trump is not authoritarian. And now, as a follow-up, for the political left who told us that this was Trump's handpicked court, a terrible court, the court has to be blown up, we need to pack the court's terrible, the court's un-American, what now? Or can we admit that the left is totally full of crap? They're always full of crap, and they will say anything at any time just to go after Trump. Trump always bad, and therefore they will still do anything to go after Trump. They don't actually believe a thing they say. Can they just gaslight and manipulate you in order to get the vote? That's the question ahead of us. And I believe that we know that the answer is yup. They will lie about anything. But if they get power, are they going to pack the court? You better believe it. The president may start speaking soon on the Supreme Court decision. It is dominating the day. Also want to get into, what does it mean to engage in a war action with Iran? And is it really 15 days away? I will discuss that as well. Keep it here. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. the briefing room. Oh, oh, are you kidding? Are you kidding?
Our trade with respect to foreign
All right,
countries trade that does
playing
run
some of
across
the
the world. It is a global problem.
arguments
I think
that
that puts in
take back
context
in,
the argument they make that this power to tariff is so broad because you're
and,
applying to every country in the world.
oh, there,
That conflates
look
the
at
nature of
that.
the tool, tariffing, which
I'm
they're
surprised he's
challenging
doing it
here,
in the
with
briefing room
nature
and
of
not
the
somewhere
declared
else. Like,
emergency, which they
I'm
haven't
assuming
disputed.
they
They
would
haven't
want to get more
disputed, for
people in
example,
there.
that the president has correctly identified that virtually every major trading
Now,
partner has this
producer Landon,
long-standing, so
let me,
asymmetric, unfair
by
treatment
the way, I
of
just think he's
all
going to lose his
trade.
head.
So
I
the
mean,
argument this power is so
I have
broad,
no idea
this
what
power
he's
is
going
so
to say.
broad is really
This is
based on a
unbelievable.
conflation of two different things. One is the
Producer
power,
Landon,
right?
you got to
Imagine
know
this.
that the
Imagine
president
for
might
example,
say some
President Reagan
words.
wanted to convince South Africa to
Right?
change its apartheid policies, and he imposed tariffs on them.
They might have
No one
certain
batted
amounts
an
of
eye. She
letters
said,
in
well,
there.
that's too broad. That's too broad. That can't be an IEEPA.
They might.
The power to tariff is a sort of fits naturally with all those
Yeah,
laws to
hopefully
block
not,
prohibited
but
fees and so forth. What they're saying, this is so broad because the
he
emergency is so
might.
broad.
So
But of
with
course, that's a
that,
presidential determination.
finger to the
And
dump
there's
button.
all kinds of basis for it.
And
also, keep in mind that the
remember,
emergency is
if
not like just the asymmetric
he
treatment.
goes on a
It's
tear,
the impact of the asymmetry, the underlying conditions, the hollowing out of
we'll
our
just go to the
manufacturing
FCC
base,
and be like, guys,
the
guys.
vulnerability of our supply chains,
That's
and
what
of
we'll do.
course, our defense industrial base's vulnerability of key inputs.
Justice Jackson?
So as I understand your response to Justice Barrett in that last question, you're saying that the power to tariff fits naturally with the power to block and seize.
By the way,
That
I
was
think
your
it's all
example,
really good
but I
question
guess
about
I'm trying to
the money and
understand
how do we get it
then
back?
Your argument
How
from
do you
the
do
text of
this?
the actual
The
statute.
answer is I don't
Because
know.
The statute,
I don't
unlike
have
what you
the
suggested,
slightest
Justice
clue.
Kagan, is focused
If it
on
all went
the
to pay down the
actual
debt,
actions that the president can
do you get
take.
to say, no, you
In
weren't
response
allowed to do this,
Justice
I get my
Kagan,
money back? How are you going to
say
prove it?
that Congress
I
was
don't know
giving the
how this
president
part works.
broad authority to act.
I don't know how
and it
you
was
detail
within
that
particular
on a
domain,
tax
which
return.
is the domain
So
of
your
emergencies
question,
with respect to
and
foreign
yeah, of
power,
course,
but
we bring up
President can
everything
basically
here.
do a
We
lot
don't
of
pretend things
But
aren't
when I read
happening.
the
We leave that to others who
it
want to
is
be
telling the
beyond
president exactly
hyperpartisan
what
on the
he
left
can
and
do.
everywhere else.
Investigate,
Left, right, center, it
block
doesn't matter.
during the pendency of an investigation.
I don't know how this works.
Regulate,
I really
direct, and compel, nullify, void, prevent, or
don't
prohibit.
know how
And I
this
guess what
is
is a little
going to
concerning
work.
to me is that your argument suggests that we should see the word imposed, the phrase imposed tariffs.
Now,
in that
if
same
listen,
series
silly
of
people
things that the president
in
could do.
the chat, you're
You
just
don't see that
just
word.
filled with
Instead,
haters. That's
you
just
take
not fun.
regulate and say
Nobody
that
wants
must
that.
mean that. So I guess I'm getting back to
Nobody
Justice
wants
Barrett's
that.
maybe original question, which was where else?
Well, by the way, I'm not
in
surprised
the
that Democrats are
code
saying
has Congress used the word
checks be issued to pay
regulate
back all Americans
to
for tariffs
sub in
costs.
for imposed
Question
tariffs.
is,
TWIA, and then this
how do you
court's
figure that out?
opinions, of course, have used
That's the
regulate
question.
and import, or have pointed out that
All right,
duties
let's
are
go,
the
Landon.
natural way to regulate foreign commerce.
But you're
Yeah,
saying we should not have expected to see the same level of granularity with respect to.
So I've got a live
the
shot right
president's
now of the White
authority
House
to
briefing room.
impose tariffs as we see
That's where the
here,
president's coming out.
investigate,
I would have
block,
thought maybe it was just a
direct and compel,
basic
nullify,
press
et cetera.
conference. Maybe
It'd
you'd
be
bring
very
people
unusual
into
for
the
Congress to
Oval.
spell out all the ways that you can regulate.
Maybe
in
it
that
would be in the
Regulate becomes a
in
big
I
catch-all.
don't
The
even know
rest
there
of
is
the
an
other
East room right
things.
now.
Well, I mean, we have a concession to that from the
But
other side.
he's
That
there
regulate
in the
includes
briefing
qualitative
room.
methods,
They have
quantitative
pulled in the
methods,
podium with the seal of the
quotas,
president of the United States.
licenses. They can see that
This
regulate,
is
there's
going
lot
to
in
be a
regulate
show.
that's not spelled out
Tony
there.
Katz,
And our
Tony
point is you
Katz
don't need to
today.
start
Good to be
tariffs,
here.
that's
Good
like
to be
all
with
of them,
you.
The most natural, the most
The
quintessential method
president
of regulating.
And yet,
speaking out on the
and
Supreme
yet,
Court
many
decision.
presidents have not used regulate in this way.
Oh,
to
I'm sorry if
impose
you can hear
tariffs.
that
I
audio.
understand you point to President.
There we go. I'll cut off their audio. The 6-3 decision to tell the president you cannot engage tariffs, but this is under a specific piece of legislation, or I should say an act, the IEEPA. And it is imperative that we remind people of this. This is not about whether or not the president can still engage tariffs. They can, maybe he has the possibility of doing this in other ways. But under the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, no. And so that's what the Supreme Court said just today. So with that, we'll wait for the president to come out. I will bring it to you as much as I possibly can. I will bring that to you. I also want to, I'll get a little more in depth on what's going on with Iran. And the giving of a 15 days to come to a deal regarding nuclear capabilities in Iran. And I said to myself, wait, didn't we take out their nuclear capabilities? Why do we need 15 days? It's like 15 days to flatten the curve. What the bloody heck? It's clear that there's going to be some movement from the U.S. in Iran, and it is clear that there is, at least in the conversations, a desire to end the regime. I put forth to you that the desire is not one that exists from the whole of the United States. Right? That's not where this is coming from. That's not where this pressure and push is coming from. I put forth to you that this Board of Peace conversation, the $7 billion that has been committed to investment into Gaza, this announcement from the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, that Israel will not be putting any money into this. They are going to stay out of that part of it, so they can be seen as not trying to put their thumb on the scale for anything that takes place. I believe that this is coming from all of those other neighboring nations. This is a hard one for the leftists to handle. This is a hard one for the Tuckers and the Candaces and the Dave Smiths to deal with. Iran has always been the problem and has always been the enemy. That is not to say that we don't have other enemies. It is Saudi Arabia that was complicit in allowing opportunities for September 11th, and we never handled Saudi Arabia properly. It's too late now. Because in the choice of Saudi Arabia or Iran, dealing with the world as it is, not the way we would like it to be, you'd rather deal with Saudi Arabia. No one can deal with Iran. No one wants to deal with the Ayatollah. No one wants to deal with this destabilizing force. No one at all is enjoying the idea that trade has been so impacted, that their safety and security on a daily basis has been so impacted. They hate it. They absolutely cannot stand it. And they know that they are all better off, all of them. Name the nation if Iran isn't there. And if you want to start with the two that believe it the most, it's the Saudis and it's the Turks. They both would like to see themselves as the hegemonic power. They both want to be a dominant player in the area. But they have a problem. The United States wants to be the dominant player in the area. No, wait, that's not right either. They can't engage and create a better world in the Middle East with Iran still there. So they need the United States to help remove that problem. And that's where we are. And that's what we're seeing. That's the situation. That's the deal. I think at this stage of the game, it's hard to deny. At this stage of the game, it would be hard to think that this isn't a large part of the impetus. We're going to put $7 billion into this. We don't want the Iranians bombing something. We don't want them paying for any terrorists. We need this. We need this done with. We can all control ourselves. These guys can't control themselves. So then we got to do something about this. And that's where we are. Now, if that's the case, then we're not talking about coming to deals regarding nuclear capabilities. We're talking about coming to deals of the removal of the Ayatollah, which is the only way to get free people. The only way for those people to survive and thrive and grow. The only way is for the Ayatollah to be gone. That's what we're watching for. The president is scheduled to speak the 6-3 Supreme Court decision going against him, saying he cannot engage tariffs under the IEEPA. What will this mean? How does the money get paid back? There's a lot of questions. The president's scheduled to speak. I'll bring it to you. This is Tony Katz today. Sorry about the cold, guys. Really am. It stinks. You never want to do that on a live stream. Can I just a moment just to take care of something really quick? Tyler, I don't know who you are, and I didn't know that you were a moron. Hamas, a terrorist organization, attacked Israel. Palestinians attacked Israelis. They murdered 1,200. Israel fought a defensive war, and they won. Every bit of data shows no genocide took place, that the destruction of Gaza is solely the fault of Hamas for not surrendering and returning the hostages. This is a stupid comment, and you're not a bright guy. Now, I think it's best at this moment that we just say goodbye to each other. We don't have to be friends. I don't want to try and convince you. All I know is this is the kind of conversation that's just too dumb for the room. I'm not apologizing for anything. So let's say goodbye to you. There we go. Let's just make that happen right there. Now, someone said that my audio is a little bit behind. That's weird. I don't know. It might have just been for you. Maybe not. Now, can I say something else that's weird? Hold on. Let me see if I can. Let me see if you can see this. The lights just went down in the press briefing room. Why? Are they white balancing? Is that what they're doing? I don't know who's at the podium. It might be just doing something with the cameras. I can't figure it out. I was staring at it. I can't figure out what they're actually doing right there. Okay. What was that? Yeah, because that's what Donald Trump needs, a dramatic entrance. No, they're white balancing. Okay. That's what they're doing. I'm surprised he's not doing it right in front of the Supreme Court. He is not going to come in like President Camacho. That is not it. If he starts talking about how plants crave electrolytes. What are you going to do? All right. Give me 30 seconds and I'll be right with you. You do not need to see me blowing my nose. That was just not necessary right there. All right, so we're waiting. I don't know why they turned down the lights. Not sure. I don't know if I have any Hulk Hogan theme music. I don't think I've got it in my... Yeah, like I have a bunch of stuff. I don't think I have that in here. No, don't. It's quite all right. Of all the things that I have, I don't have that one. Just checking right there. No, I don't have that one. Good enough. So we'll wait for the president. We'll see what he has to say. I got to assume he's going to go to town on these people. Now, it's Donald Trump. It's very, very possible that Trump walks into the room and says, this court, what are you going to do? And then talks about 100 other things. talks about how we don't need the tariffs. I never liked the tariffs. Why are you saying I like tariffs? Like, that's really possible with him. Who knows how he's going to go about this? But it's also possible, very, very possible, that he could talk about 100 things and not talk about the tariffs at all. Goldman Sachs supposedly saying that they don't think tariffs are done. They think the president's going to come out with another series of orders and edicts, etc., utilizing other. Remember, they've been preparing for this. Well, are we? Do you really think that? Do you really think that they were unprepared for things going south? They're prepared for everything. Everything. So I would have no doubt that they're like, okay, if X, then Y, and they're going to do this, and this. But yes, I do think that the president could get into a whole bunch of other conversations. It could be a conversation about Iran. It could be a conversation about glyphosates. Oh, the glyphosates. And you're like, Tony, what? So glyphosates are chemicals that are utilized when we're talking about weeds. It's used in Roundup. And there are a lot of people opposed to having these things utilized in the United States, which is really a larger conversation about pesticides. The president signed an executive order, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is backing this up. This executive order that says we need to be making these things here. We can't rely on other people manufacturing these things. These things need to be made right here in the United States. And allegedly, the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again movement, is apoplectic about this. You promised this and you promised healthy or that, and we don't want these things in our food. Now, I don't claim any expertise on glyphosates. I would say I also don't want it in my food. But that's different than whether or not we have places and reasons to be creating these chemicals on our own for purposes that might actually be necessary. So, yes, someone's asking, didn't RFK sue? He did. I believe it was Monsanto, and he won $290 million when he was an environmental lawyer. Correct. That is an accurate thing you just said there. You're asking the right question. That is something that took place. That doesn't make RFK right. And we certainly don't know the case in and of itself and what it may be entailed. You're not going to have me sit here and say Monsanto are the greatest people who ever did anything anywhere. Monsanto's perfect. All hail Monsanto. No. But are there situations where we want this chemical, where it actually does protect food supply as opposed to harming it? Well, maybe just because somebody's squawking on social media doesn't make them right or accurate at all. So as I understand the executive order, this is about production. This is about whether or not we should be making our own goods. Now, if you want to argue it ends up in the groundwater, it ends up here, there, and everywhere. That's the conversation we should be having. It could end up here, could end up there. I do not know the science on glyphosates. I think I'm pronouncing it right, aren't I? Glyphosates, sorry. I don't know where it ends up next. I don't know if it's all negative all the time. I would clearly say that one of the things we should be looking at is what are the pesticides we utilize on food here? How are we doing damage to ourselves, and whether or not we should just stop it already. Same thing is true is conversations regarding corn. What kind of corn are we growing? Are we fully diversified? Do we have backups? Do we have other strains we can go to? All of these things, because corn is not just what we eat. Corn is what all the animals eat. Just because an executive order gets signed doesn't mean that everything has now gone to hell. And the people saying, well, this is dividing the Maha movement, I have no proof of that at all. I think that's what people want, because the Maha movement can help you win the midterms. Coming back to the radio show, guys. We'll get into it. We are waiting on the President of the United States, Tony Katz. Tony Katz today, good to be here, good to be with you. Why is the President speaking? Because the Supreme Court ruled against him. 6-3 decision on tariffs. Now, we should be clear that this is about one specific instance regarding the IEEPA. That would be the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which states that the president has this authority to regulate importation. He can regulate imports, but he can't tariff them, because what the court said is tariff is a tax. And if a tariff is a tax, well, Congress are the only ones who can implement a tax. In that, maybe we have a real problem here. Because if they want to argue that all tariffs are taxes and only Congress can implement a tax, they're saying that under any situation, the president can't implement a tariff. And I don't think that's true at all. You're right. I call tariffs taxes because they are. That is different, right? I'm giving the layman's. That's different than how we categorize things in a legal framework and whether or not these things are allowed. So the president is now going to speak. I was like, ooh, okay. Well, one could guess that he's hopping mad about this. He has made this the cornerstone of his economic policy. He has said that it's going to be a disaster if the court rules against. The court has ruled against. And so he's in the briefing room. Well, he's not there yet. He is scheduled to be in the briefing room. What's weird is they turn the lights down in the briefing room. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to make everybody sleepy. I don't have the answer. But they turn the lights down in the briefing room, and we're waiting on the president to come in. And I was discussing that there are a lot of ways to view this turn of events, and this might be a blessing in disguise for the president if you're someone who believes that the tariffs have been the impediment to far better economic growth. But there was an interesting story about the Make America Healthy Again folk, the Maha folk, and this conversation about glyphosates. I didn't know what a glyphosate was. Hey, I know things. I don't know all things. Glyphosates is what's utilized as a weed killer. Like, for example, in Roundup, made by Bayer Monsanto. The president signed an executive order that would be about domestic production of it. And allegedly, Maha is infuriated. So we're talking about weed killers here. The executive order that the president signed, which invokes the Defense Production Act to promote the domestic production of phosphorus and the weed killer glyphosate, which is critical, he said, to both defense and food security. I find that ensuring robust domestic elemental phosphorus mining and United States-based production of glyphosate-based herbicides is central to American economy and national security. Without immediate federal action, the United States remains inadequately equipped and vulnerable. Now, that is a far cry from, now let's go spray that on our food. I think it's very acceptable, normal, rational to say, don't spray that on our food. We're crazy if we introduce this into the food supply. Now, glyphosate's been used in U.S. agriculture. There are links, alleged links to cancer. Bayer, which remember, Bayer Monsanto, Bayer, they propose paying $7.25 billion to settle lawsuits claiming that the chemical causes cancer. So this order requires the Agriculture Secretary, Brooke Rollins, to issue orders and regulations to implement the increased supply of phosphorus and glyphosate. Ensuring domestic production of elemental phosphorus and glyphosate-based herbicides, the loss of which would cripple critical supply chains, leave our defense industrial base and food supply vulnerable to hostile foreign actors. So here's an interesting argument. You need weed killers because you never know what the Chinese are going to introduce to your food supply to try and destroy your food supply. Maybe you need to destroy it before the Chinese destroy you. With all due respect, that's not an insane thought. So let's take a moment to take a breath and ask ourselves what it is we're discussing here, as opposed to screaming and yelling into the wind that somehow all of a sudden Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump want to poison your food, which is a progressive, stupid argument and not one of people worthy enough of being in this conversation with us. It is acceptable to say, I don't want these things around food. It might also be acceptable to say, we might need to have these chemicals that we can produce if others want to engage in a level of warfare that we haven't even fathomed. Because that's how I take this executive order. That's how I take this. We cannot take any step. This was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. last year. We cannot take any step that will put a single farmer in this country out of business. There's 1 million farmers who rely on glyphosate. Now, I do not know if it's 1 million farmers. I don't know if that's true at all. But I would be curious to hear from farmers on what they utilize it for and what issues they see from it. Or are we going to find that because we have these chemicals, we're able to feed everybody? Two things can be true. And so this is where I start. You might want to be the people producing this yourself so you can be protected against people who are trying to do you harm. And the idea that some nation wouldn't start attempting to engage agents into crops and into fields to re-engineer and a whole host of things regarding food stuffs. Well, I'm sorry, you haven't read enough sci-fi or dystopian novels, and also you're not thinking the way they think. You're not thinking the way they think. You want to destroy a country? Starve it. This is a real issue. But the follow-up here is, now that this executive order is at play, let's now make this a much larger conversation. How about we discuss what chemicals we do have going into our food and how we eliminate them? Why don't we just open up the conversation as opposed to just immediately screaming about the conversation? Just screaming about this stuff doesn't solve anything. There might be a need for it. And certainly there could be an argument to us having our own supply and not being dependent on foreign actors. Does it mean that we want it in our bread, our chicken, our cereals? I think we could discuss how we don't, and maybe discuss ways to ensure it stays out. I don't know. Maybe this is time for a rational mind, and nobody out there wants to be rational. The president is scheduled to speak. When he does, I'll bring it to you. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Get rid of glyphosate and see a worldwide famine, the likes never before seen. That isn't hyperbole. I don't know how to answer that, right? Because it might be hyperbole, but I think there's an argument that I'm willing to accept, Don, and I appreciate you being here, about, are we going to pretend that all these things are just evil, just terrible, and there's no value to it whatsoever? That's a weird thing to do. And I don't want to be that guy. But I think it's acceptable to ask, how do we limit these things or eliminate certain things? Can't we find another way and maybe a better way? I think it's okay to ask. I think that part of the problem is things get dismissed, right? You can't talk about that. Oh, no, you don't know. We should be talking about these things. And why does anyone foreign own farmland in our country? Great question. I would not allow other nations to own farmland in the United States, not just China. I would certainly not allow the communists to own any land in the United States. Mike Pence coming out in favor of the Supreme Court decision. Dear Lord. Mike's throwing bombs from the sidelines. Blame me for 2020. Pew! I haven't spoken to the vice president in a while. If he doesn't come out here, there's going to be a riot. So while we wait on President Trump, Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, was supposed to hold a news conference. But I think he's holding off. I think he's holding off because he doesn't want to step on the president's toes. Meanwhile, the president hasn't started this press conference yet. This press conference regarding the Supreme Court decision saying that the president cannot, through the IEEPA, engage tariffs. So let's get into one of our other subjects. And that is what we have seen from these student walkouts about ICE. What we have seen is that there are a lot of school districts where principals and superintendents and administrators and teachers need to get fired because they supported student walkouts. They supported utilizing children as props for the political games of adults. And these students, in many cases, are allowed to just run out into the streets. We've seen the videos. They've been crossing streets without any type of supervision. I'm sorry, I thought they were students. I thought we were supposed to keep an eye on them. They've engaged in fights and in violence. They think they don't have to listen to principals when principals say get back to class. Students have been arrested because of this. And then there was this story that took place.
She just wants answers after her special needs son is found wandering miles away from his school when he was supposed to be in class.
I don't feel safe. I'm just scared to go back. There's something could happen that same day again.
11-year-old Richard Harley says he doesn't want to go back to class after he was found wandering, scared and alone, miles away from school grounds following a student-led walkout protesting ICE.
They're supposed to stay on 72, by the school, but they did the exact opposite. It went just way more farther, and no one even knew how far they were going.
So you kind of got
I was like the last one, so I was all alone.
And that, kids, is that. If the answer is, well, one kid lost is acceptable, you would be like, well, that's how the Democrats view bringing kids into the country, right? That's how they view it. You take a look at what it was that they were okay with when it comes to having kids lost as they were coming across the border. Well, it's just one kid lost. It's totally fine. No problem. Not an issue. I will get into more of that. Meanwhile, President Trump taking the stage to address the press regarding the Supreme Court decision.
Just on New York.
I'm fascinated
Just
with the
taken to it right
two
now.
instances.
Wow. That's a lot of people. That's a new record. We set a record every time. Well, thank you very much for being here. The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country, which is right now very proud of those justices. When you read the dissenting opinions, there's no way that anyone can argue against them. There's no way. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long, that I can assure you. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They're an automatic no, just like in Congress. They're an automatic no. They're against anything that makes America strong, healthy, and great again. They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no, no matter how good a case you have. It's a no. But you can't knock their loyalty. It's one thing you can do with some of our people. Others think they're being politically correct, which has happened before far too often with certain members of this court. And it's happened so often with this court. What a shame. Having to do with voting in particular, when in fact they're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats, and not that this should have anything at all to do with it. They're very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution. It's my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests and a political movement that is far smaller than people would ever think. It's a small movement. I won by millions of votes. We won in a landslide. With all the cheating that went on, there was a lot of it. We still won in a landslide. Too big to rig. But these people are obnoxious, ignorant, and loud. They're very loud.
He doesn't divert from the things that drive him crazy, does he?
Are afraid of that. They don't want to do the right thing. They're afraid of it. This was an important case to me, more as a symbol of economic national security. And also, I would say, just for our country itself, so important, because we're doing so well as a country. We've never done so well. The good news is that there are methods, practices, statutes, and authorities as recognized by the entire court in this terrible decision, and also as recognized by Congress, which they refer to, that are even stronger than the IEEPA tariffs available to me as President of the United States. And in actuality, I was very modest in my ask of other countries and businesses because I wanted to do, and it's very important, I wanted to be very well behaved because I wanted to do anything, I didn't want to do anything that would affect the decision of the court.
Oh,
because I understand the court.
he was being
I
reserved
understand how
until now.
they're very easily swayed. I want to be a good boy. I have very effectively utilized tariffs over the past year to make America great again. Our stock market has just recently broken 50,000 on the Dow, and simultaneously, and even more amazingly, broken 7,000 on the S&P, two numbers that everybody thought upon our landslide election victory could not be attained. Think of that. Nobody thought it was possible to do it within 4 years, and we did it
He's
in
repeated
1
that
year.
line a lot.
They said you'll never be able. You'll go back and you read the geniuses, read their statements, all of the Nobel Prize winners in economics. They said, no, you couldn't do it in 4 years. Well, we didn't do it in 4 years. We did it in 1 year. We broke every record in the book, and we're continuing to do so. Tariffs have likewise been used to end 5 of the 8 wars that I settled. I settled 8 wars, whether you like it or not, including India, Pakistan, big ones, nuclear.
Whether
could have
you
been
like it or
nuclear.
not.
Prime
Oh,
Minister
he's
of
a
Pakistan
mood.
said yesterday at the great meeting that we had, the Peace Board, he said yesterday that President Trump could have saved 35 million lives by getting us to stop fighting. They were getting ready to do some bad things, but they've given us great national security, these tariffs have, and together with our strong borders, reduced fentanyl coming into our country by 30%. When I use them as a penalty against countries illegally sending this poison into our country to poison our youth, all of those tariffs remain. They all remain. I don't know if you know that or not. They all remain. We're still getting them, and we will after the decision. I guess there's nobody left to appeal to. But again, those 3 people, such respect. I've had a lot of respect for them anyway, but such great respect. But other alternatives will now be used to replace the ones that the court incorrectly rejected. We have
Okay, he's going to keep
alternatives.
going.
Great alternatives. Could be more money. We'll take in more money, and we'll be a lot stronger for it. We're
Now,
taking in
what he
hundreds
says
of
and what he
billions of
does.
dollars. We'll continue to do so.
Those are 2 very different
To show
things.
you how
But right
ridiculous
now,
the
what he's
opinion
saying is,
however,
take this away
the
from me.
court said that
I've got
I'm
other ways
allowed
of
to
doing this.
charge even
Kavanaugh,
$1.
in his
Can't
dissent,
charge
even
$1.
spelled some of them out. We'll have more from the president because you know he's going to take questions as well, one would assume. I'll keep it right here. This is Tony Katz today.
Under IEEPA.
Keep
Not
going.
$1. I assume to protect other countries. This must have been done to protect those other countries, certainly not the United States of America, which they should be interested in protecting. That's what they're supposed to be protecting. But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1 because that's not what it says. And that's not the way it even reads. I can do anything I want to do to them, but I can't charge any money. So I'm allowed to destroy the country, but I can't charge them a little fee. I could give them a little 2-cent fee, but I cannot charge under any circumstances. I cannot charge them anything. Think of that. How ridiculous is that? I'm allowed to embargo them. I'm allowed to tell them you can't do business in the United States anymore. We want you out of here. But if I want to charge them $10, I can't do that. It's incorrect. Their decision's incorrect. But it doesn't matter because we have very powerful alternatives that have been approved by this decision. You know, they've been approved by the decision for those that thought they had us. And they're saying that I have the absolute right to license, but not the right to charge a license fee. So think of that. I have the right to license. It's a very powerful word. In many ways, license is more powerful than tariffs. In fact, I was thinking about using it. But they came up with the idea that I can license, just like the people that were opposing me told them to do, but not the right to charge a license fee. Think of that. Who ever heard of such a thing? What license has ever been issued without the right to charge a fee? You get a license, you charge a fee. It's automatic, but not with this court. But now the court has given me the unquestioned right to ban all sorts of things from coming into our country, to destroy foreign countries, but a much more powerful right than many people ever thought we even had, but not the right to charge a fee. How crazy is that? Our country is the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. And it was a dead country 1.5 years ago under an incompetent president. But now I'm going to go in a different direction. probably the direction that I should have gone the first time, but I read the language. I'm very good at reading language, and it read our way 100%. But now I'll go the way I could have gone originally, which is even stronger than our original choice. As Justice Kavanaugh, whose stock has gone so up, you have to see, I'm so proud of him, wrote in his dissent, although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. So, think of that. The decision might not substantially constrain. And it doesn't, he's right. In fact, I can charge much more than I was charging. So I'm going to just start. Although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That's because numerous other federal statutes, which is so true, authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs issued in this case. Even more tariffs, actually. Those statutes include, think of that, those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Section 232. All of these things I know so well. The Trade Act of 1974, Sections 122, 201, 301, and the Tariff Act of 1930, Section 338, all clear. But it's a little bit longer process. I thought I'd make things simple, but they didn't let us do that. I would like to thank Justice Kavanaugh for his, frankly, his genius and his great ability.
President Trump,
very proud of,
saying that, of course, it was a terrible decision from the Supreme Court, 6-3 decision, saying that he cannot implement tariffs under the IEEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, can't issue tariffs that way. And then reading basically from the Kavanaugh dissent, where Brett Kavanaugh explains 3 or 4 or 5 other ways the president could still engage tariffs. And this is, I mean, singing Kavanaugh's praises left and right, saying, okay, well, maybe I should have gone it this way from the beginning, but I still have things I could do here, and I'm going to. Tony Katz today, good to be with you now. Saying things and doing things are 2 different things. Remember, with Trump, it's not about what he says, it's about what he does. But the man loves tariffs, and he doesn't seem to be shying away from them, even though I wish he would. So he is discussing what else he can do in this press conference he's having as we speak.
Based on long-standing law and hundreds of victories, and even, as I was pointed out before, even thousands of victories over the years, to the contrary, the Supreme Court did not overrule tariffs. They merely overruled a particular use of IEEPA tariffs. And essentially, it's the use to get a fee. I can do anything I want with IEEPA, anything. I just can't charge anybody for it. I can license, I just can't charge them. It's ridiculous, but it's okay because we have other ways, numerous other ways. The ability to block, embargo, restrict, license, or impose any other condition on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade with the United States under IEEPA has been fully confirmed by this decision. So now there's no doubt, because, you know, there were a lot of questions about tariffs because no president was smart enough to use them to protect our country from those countries and businesses that were ripping us off. You took a look at the deficits that we had with some of these countries. It was disgraceful what they got away with for many, many decades. But now we know, because this decision affirms all those things that some people weren't sure about. In order to protect, and it says so, in order to protect our country, a president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past period of a year under the various tariff authorities. So we can use other of the statutes, other of the tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and are fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs. They're existing, they're there. Remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and
if
companies.
Markets just lose their mind.
Thank you for your attention to this matter. And I say quite simply, which I've said for a long time, make America great again. And interestingly, we've already made it great, so I don't have to use that, but I don't think we'll ever give up on MAGA. MAGA is always going to be with us. If you have a few questions, you can let us know. But just to end, so we're going forward, we will be able to take in more money, and there'll no longer be doubt, because there was always doubt. I know the people that brought the lawsuit, and they're sleazebags, major sleazebags, but I know them, and they're foreign country centric. They were sending things into our country, and the people representing them knew full well, but they were sending things into our country, and they were beneficial to other countries, but very, very bad for us. And I stopped it, and we'll just keep it going. So we have a totally firm decision now. And I don't think the court meant it, because the court doesn't show great spirit toward our country, in my opinion. A lot of bad decisions, but there are usually ways around it. This is something we could have done, as Justice Kavanaugh said, we could have done this originally, but we're doing it now. And the numbers could be far greater than the hundreds of billions we've already taken in. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm very curious. You've spoken about
in the red.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Justice Thomas and Alito, as you know, are the most conservative constitutional justices. Do you think that you'll get to appoint 2 more justices later this term with similar ideologies? And what type of vetting process will they go through to ensure they uphold?
I don't know, but they're great justices. That's all I could say. And I hope they're going to be around a long time. I hope they're going to stay healthy. They're great people. They're great. And Justice Alito, too, to add to the group. These are great men.
Right.
With a great love of our country and a great understanding of the law.
Mr. President, are you going to ask Congress to take additional action on tariffs now?
No, I don't need to. It's already been approved. I mean, I would ask Congress and probably get it. When people look at the real numbers, and you look at hundreds of billions of dollars that have come into our country. Yesterday, I was at a steel plant, as you know, and went to great place, great plant, great, wonderful people. And they were telling me, I said to them, you were there, a lot of the press in this room. Of course, I don't think this plane's big enough to take the press in this room, but a lot of the press right here. We're in Georgia. And I said to the owner, I made a speech at a factory. They make steel products. And I said, how are you? Nice to meet you. How's business? President, I'd love to kiss you. This is a very powerful man. I don't want to be kissed by that man, but a very powerful, strong man. He's been in the steel business for many years. His father started it. And he said, sir, I want to kiss you. I said, why? He said, because we were down to working 1 hour a week, and then you came in and imposed tariffs, and all of that foreign junk that they were dropping into our country stopped. And we're now going to double shifts, 7 days a week, and we may be very soon going to 24 hours around the clock, almost 7 days a week. He said, sir, I want to kiss you so badly. And I said, no, thank you. But you know what? He just to finalize it, he said, oh, this is a great place in Georgia. He said, all up and down the highway. Same exact answer, sir. We're all going out of business. We're going to go bankrupt. We're all going out of business. And now every one of us are thriving, and we're hiring people like we haven't. He said, like I've never, and he's been in business.
Yes, you can argue. People in steel did very well. And then you take a look at what happened with appliances and how much the prices have gone up.
And you're going to start to see the results in a year from now when all those factories that are under construction right now. You see all the construction numbers.
Just reality.
Those construction workers are building factories that are going to be open, including not only AI, which is big, but car plants coming in from Canada, who ripped us off for 30% of our market. Mexico ripped us off for a big portion. Over the years, they've taken our market. They've taken our cars. They manufacture them in Japan, Germany, and all over the place because nobody's standing in this position. The position I have as president of the United States had the insight, the courage, well, I don't know what it is, to charge tariffs. You can make your product outside. You can put our people out of business. You can put everybody on the unemployment rolls. But if you're going to make a car in some other country, you're going to pay a 15, 20, 30% tariff. And those things would have never happened. We wouldn't have lost our business. Same thing with, as an example, Taiwan. Taiwan came in. They stole our chip business. They make chips for 30 years longer. They made chip. And they put our companies. Intel would be now the largest company. I saved Intel. I literally saved it at the beginning of this administration. And now all those companies in Taiwan are building factories in Arizona, Texas, and various other places because they don't want to pay tariffs. They're all pouring into the United States. But just like that great patriot said yesterday, sir, what you've done, nobody thought was possible. And Steve Moore, a highly respected economist, came into my office yesterday. He said, you've done something nobody's ever done. 22 Nobel Prize winners in economics said we would right now be in a recession. And you said, no, we're going to have a booming country. We're going to have a booming country. You were right. All 22 were wrong, and you were right. This country is booming, and it's booming because of the election on November 5th, and it's booming for another reason. It's booming because of tariffs. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. What will you say ahead of this decision that if the Supreme Court
please,
ruled?
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. What will you say to foreign nations who seek to renegotiate their deals? And what did you mean a moment ago when you said that the Supreme Court has been swayed by foreign interests?
Well, I think that foreign interests are represented by people that I believe have undue influence. They have a lot of influence over the Supreme Court, whether it's through fear or respect or friendships. I don't know. But I know some of the people that were involved on the other side, and I don't like them. I think they're real slime balls. And got to do what's right for the country. You got to do what's right for the Constitution.
Oh.
That's why I respect so much Justice Thomas and Alito, Kavanaugh, because they not only dissented, their dissent is so strong. When you read their dissent, you know, a lot of times you'll read a dissent and it's like, well, you don't know, it could go either way. There's no other way. The good news is, it's like Justice Kavanaugh said, very strongly said, you have other ways you can go. You don't have to go that way. You can go other way.
And the president is clear. He's going to continue with tariffs, and he's saying immediately we're implementing this, this, and this, and keeping these tariffs in place, and we're going to look at other things. Kavanaugh did lay out a blueprint. You could do all these other things. So, okay. I wish he wouldn't, but I am not going to get my wish. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz today. All right, let's bring it back.
No, you please. I'm not talking to you. I don't talk to CNN. It's fake news. Go ahead.
Mr. President, yesterday you made the case that the economy is the hottest it's been in a long time. Right. January jobs report beat expectations, CPI report beat expectation, real wages are up. What would you tell Americans who are worried that this decision will kind of throw the economy that you have projected going in the right direction at a very rapid pace off track?
Well, thank you for the question. And I will say this, we really are at a very important point. I've been waiting for this decision so long. They could have made this decision a long time ago. Not complex. They're wrong on it. It's a ridiculous decision, but they should have released this a long time ago. We waited months, and that gave uncertainty. Now we have certainty. And I think you're going to see the country get much stronger because of it. Look, we were ripped off by almost every country in the world. If you look at the surpluses, almost every country in the world that did business with us, our people were stupid. And I blame presidents for it because they're ultimately the leader. We were being ripped off by almost every single country in the world, had some massive surpluses. China had hundreds of billions of dollars in surpluses with the United States. They rebuilt China. They rebuilt the army. We built China's army by allowing that to happen. I have a great relationship with President Xi, but he respects our country now. Now, what we've done, I charged China a 20% tariff as a penalty for sending fentanyl in. And that was 20 times more than they could make by selling fentanyl. And I said, at some point you're going to say, and they have reduced it. Fentanyl is down by more than 30% coming into our country. Part of that is our strong border. We have a strong border now. But thank you. Thank you for your question.
Mr. President, sir, you warned once in a social media post that if the Supreme Court did this, shot down your tariffs, the U.S. would be, quote, financially defenseless. Are we financially defenseless right now?
No, because we're doing something in a different way. We're doing something in a very powerful way.
By the way, legit.
And we're using things that some people thought we should have used in the first place. But it's
absolutely legit to say you said this. Is it still hold? So that's not a gotcha. His words. Did you mean this? Is this true? All right.
Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. So since Liberation Day, there's about $175 billion in tariff revenue that is now in limbo. Do you have to refund $175 billion?
Think of it, Peter. Very fair question. They take months and months to write an opinion, and they don't even discuss that point. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars, not millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And so I said, well, what happens to all the money that we took in? It wasn't discussed. Wouldn't you think they would have put one sentence in there saying that keep the money or don't keep the money, right? I guess it has to get litigated for the next 2 years. So they write this terrible, defective
He's not giving back
decision,
money.
Totally defective. It's almost like not written by smart people. And what
It's his argument that he didn't have to give back
about
money?
Your question is very basic. That was the first question I asked also to make you feel good. He said, what about all the money that we've taken in? Sir, they don't discuss that. How crazy is that?
What you're saying is, are you saying that you don't plan to honor refunds for companies that file for them?
I just told you the answer, right? I told you the answer. It's not discussed. We'll end up being in court for the next 5 years. Go ahead, Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you were talking about the relationship with countries that you have sought trade deals with, do you anticipate that they will seek to renegotiate those? What do you say to them? And do you view this as a potential undermining power for your
We're going
negotiations?
straight ahead with 10% straight across the board, which was the absolute right to do. And that's taking place. That's a lot of money coming into our country. And then during that period of about 5 months, we are doing the various investigations necessary to put fair tariffs or tariffs, period, on other countries. So we're doing that period, but we're immediately instituting the 10% provision, which we're allowed to do. And in the end, I think we'll take in more money than we've taken in before.
The markets are up a little.
President, you've used the tariff revenue to pay for a host of federal policies. You claim that they will pay for them. What happens?
Well, like the farmers, we took care of farmers. You know, the farmers were mistreated by foreign countries very badly, very, very badly. And last week I gave them $12 billion out of tariff money. We intend to, out of tariff money, because just so you understand, we have tariffs. We just have them in a different way. And now they've been confirmed by the Supreme Court of the United States. So there's no longer that question out there about tariffs. And we'll be taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. And countries that have treated us badly will have to pay a price for treating us badly.
The president is being clear. It will be a 10% tariff, global tariff. After hearing the Supreme Court decision 6-3 against being able to utilize tariffs through the IEEPA or IEEPA, Tony Katz today. And when asked point blank about the $175 billion the U.S. has taken in via tariffs, President Trump's answer is, they didn't tell us what to do, so I guess there's going to be lawsuits. And we're going to be in court for years figuring out, he actually said 5 years, figuring out who gets what. So no, don't anticipate a refund. Although the president could change his mind on that very, very quickly. Tony Katz today. I keep forgetting when I say hello. The president's got his team over there. I believe that's Jameson Greer, the who does the trade work.
That led to our huge trade deficit. And so you can look forward in the coming days and weeks to seeing all of that come out, and we're going to keep continuity in the program. We're going to keep addressing this so that the deficit can keep going down. That's the trend it has, and we can make America great again.
No.
One more question.
Several of Republicans in Congress have supported this decision by the Supreme Court. And Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, has called you a wannabe king. Why wouldn't
him a low IQ?
But why wouldn't
he doesn't even know? And I watched him the other day interview. The guy doesn't even know what a tariff is.
But there's been bipartisan criticism.
No, not bipartisan.
Of the tariff.
Excuse me.
There's several
A few
Republicans
people.
have said that.
Yeah,
But
a
why
few people.
wouldn't you just work with Congress to come up with a plan?
I don't have to.
To push tariffs.
I have the
through?
right to do tariffs, and I've always had the right to do tariffs, and it's all been approved by Congress. So there's no reason to do it. All we're doing is we're going through a little bit more complicated process. Not complicated very much, but a little more complicated than what we had. We'll be able to take in tariffs, more tariffs. And the Congress people and the Congress,
the Canadian tariffs last week.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
been votes
you
in
know
the
why?
Senate against it.
Yeah, because we lost 2 Republicans or 3 Republicans because they're not good Republicans. What you don't say, you don't say that we got 215 votes.
You need 218 for something to pass.
Yeah, sure we do. We might have lost 3 votes, and what was the score on the Republican side? 215 to 3, right? But you don't say that. We have great unity. There's great unity in the Republican Party, and I hope everyone's going to vote Republican, because otherwise you won't have a country left, because these people have been they are destroying our country. Please.
Mr. President, the 122 tariffs, that 10%,
Yeah.
is that going to be for 150 days, or do you want to charge that indefinitely?
We have a right to do pretty much what we want to do, but we're going to charge it starting effectively. I think it's 3 days from now. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, you speak to a lot of factory workers, a lot of manufacturing workers. What does the Supreme Court ruling say? What's that message to those factory workers?
Well, I think the factory workers are happy because we're now telling them that they're going to look.
The tariffs are going to continue in some way, shape, or form. Right now, it is this 10% global tariff. The markets are actually moving upward as we speak. We'll see how they end. And maybe it's because if that's the case, it's global. It's one size fits all. You know what is. You don't have to do any guesswork. And if there's one thing that markets like, it is certainty. Do I like it? Oh, hell, I don't like it. But I'm not getting what I want. Crazy, crazy day. Meanwhile, do we have war on the horizon with Iran? That's a worthy question. I will get in to that. He could have just said, nah. Nope, he's going full bore. And these are going to somehow work better? Well, I guess we're all about to find out. More to get to. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. This is Tony Katz Today.
And I met with Bill Ford, the head of Ford, and we were in one of the biggest plants, an original plant from the early 1900s, where, by the way, I might add this, it's not really relevant, but it's all relevant. Murders are down the lowest since 1900, around the time that he had this plant. That's 125 years. We have the lowest murder rate. Okay. And our crime is way down in the country. The factories that we're talking about, the people that we're talking about, they are so thrilled with Trump. So whether we charge IEEPA tariffs or whether we charge tariffs under a different section, that's what we're going to be doing. There's no way we can this is what happened to our country. This is why we owe $38 trillion, which we'll get rid of in pretty good course. We have a very incompetent Fed chairman who likes high interest rates. For political reasons, he likes them. But we're going to have somebody very good. Interest rates should come down very substantially. I think we should pay the lowest interest rates on the planet. There should be no country, and we don't do that. We're number 38. This is just bad policy for a long period of time. But what's happened is we've made America strong again. We've made America great again. We should pay. As an example, the country of Switzerland, we were getting almost no tariffs from them. We had a $40 billion deficit. And the prime minister called me up. She said, but we are a small country, because I said we're going to raise it to 39% from nothing. That would have rendered them not very successful, as opposed to right now they're considered elite. But if we put a tariff, it would. And I realized then, she said, but sir, we are a small country. I said, you're a small country with a big deficit. For us, you're making a lot of money off the United States. If we do that, a lot of these elite countries, they're elite because we let them make so much money. And I want them to do well, but I don't want them to do well on the backs of the American taxpayer. So I appreciate your question. I think it's a reasonable answer.
President Trump, you said that you were disappointed with that, but were you surprised with this decision? What you felt when you...
I was surprised because I thought that what we did was, number one, according to, I mean, I read the paragraphs. I read very well. Great comprehension. I read everything there is to read, and I said, we can't lose this case. But we can when judges are political, when they want to be politically correct, when they're catering to a group of people in D.C. Maybe, I don't know what it is, because when you read it, there's no other interpretation. There is no other interpretation. But it's okay, because what has come out, I'll say it for the third time and maybe the last time in a while, is that we've taken the uncertainty of tariffs out, because we had uncertainty.
What did I just say?
We got sued by sleazebags, I know them well, that are very outside country, China-centric, but outside country-centric.
We'll see if it does. I'm not 100% sure how it's going to go. Guys, the radio show continues over at WIBC.com. You can check it out over there. I am back on Monday. Now, I'm out Tuesday because I'll be flying to D.C. for the State of the Union, which they're already planning walkouts and all sorts of stuff. I'm in the room. I'm in the room for the State of the Union. Who knows what's going to happen? And then I'll be live from D.C. on Wednesday with the full breakdown of everything that happened. Oh, yeah. It's going to be something else. Something else indeed. Can't wait. Cannot wait to bring that to you. Also, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, I think ticket sales end today. I don't know when they end. I hope to see you on February 28th, because the bourbon's going to be amazing. Tickets.TonyKatz.com. I'm going to talk about how we win the midterms. And man, this is going to play into it. All of this, huge, massive. Get your tickets. Come join me. February 28th, tickets.TonyKatz.com. It's going to be an incredible night. I appreciate you guys. Go have fun. Go have a good weekend. Actually, you got to listen to the rest of the show at WIBC.com. Then go have a good weekend. I'll catch you Monday, everyone. Take care.